It's Shazam week. I don't know why I turned into Oprah Winfrey.
I know, I was about to say, Shazam week.
You get a Shazam, and you get a Shazam, and you get a Shazam. Shazam screenings are out. I'm Roth Cornet.
I'm Dan Murrell. Yes, hello, I'm Dan Murrell. I got caught up in Shazam there for a second.
Shazam week is upon us, which means that there are some fan screenings out, which means we get to talk about Shazam, which we saw a couple of weeks ago. Dan, this is a big one for DC. This is obviously coming off of Aquaman, massive success for them. Connected to, but not directly related to sort of the characters, the Justice League characters that they have given us to date.
Same universe.
Same universe. But there was a lot of curiosity about this one because it felt a little bit tonally distinct, even from the trailers, which it absolutely is. Did they pull it off?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought they really pulled it off. This and Wonder Woman are easily my favorite movies in the DC. This version of the DC universe, whatever it's called. We need to figure this out. So just for our own, we're going to keep calling it the DCEU until someone tells us differently.
Yeah.
I really like this movie. I thought that it was very funny. We'll get into the performances.
Yeah.
The performances are really, really strong. It's got a heart to it that stands outside of the fact that it's a superhero movie. A lot of times superhero films and even superhero movies that I love, like Spider-Man 2, the heart in them is very much confined to like, I'm a hero and this is what being a hero means. And we've seen it on a lot of different, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies.
Yeah.
It's not that that's a bad thing, but we've seen that sort of superhero heart take in a lot of movies. And it worked. It worked as recently as Into the Spider-Verse, which had a lot of, but this movie I thought had a lot of, it had that kind of heart, but it just has a lot of just affection and love and just it's about just family and just being brought in from the cold, being brought in from being someone who's not wanted and finding togetherness that is just it transcends the superhero tag, and it's just a really kind of warm, funny family film that has a guy that turns into a superhero when he says Shazam.
Yeah, lightning out of his hands. I think one of the things that I really liked about it, and I like this movie a lot. This is a huge recommendation for me. If I was to do a pull quote, I would call it Deadpool with heart. Although I will say that Deadpool also has heart, frankly.
Yeah.
But this is more of a family-friendly, sweeter Deadpool because it's very meta. It's commenting on some of the tropes of superhero movies. There's one scene in particular towards the end, third act sequence, which normally the third act sequence for these films, even if you really like the movie, goes awry. It's very formulaic. It's hard to break free of that. No, not so here.
Yeah.
Shazam finds a way to completely refresh this third act where that is both thematically in line with what it's set up. There's a very meta sequence that's hilarious. But there's also, speaking to your point about heart and family, that plays in as well, perfectly aligned with the themes of the film.
Yeah, we hit the third act, and I was kind of, the movie had already won me over, but I had sort of just kind of leaned back in my seat and relaxed a little bit because I was like, okay, we're at the point, and I'm even seeing some things happen. We're at the point where I know where we go from here, and I get it. It happens. You have to deliver certain things in a big movie like this, and it diffused it on a few different occasions. It diffused it once with just the funniest moment in the movie, where they take this thing that you've seen 100 times and really just eviscerate it and point out how stupid it is. And then beyond that, we get to another point, and they add in this other layer that really just puts a shot of energy back into the arm of the movie, and just fun and
joyful,
joy, and tying into the deeper theme of the movie that really elevates it above and beyond, to the point where it wasn't just like a really good movie that falls into convention to like, no, even when it came to the point where you have to deliver this certain big set pieces that you need to, it found a way to do that in its own way, which I really respect.
It defies convention, but not for the sake of defying convention. It defies convention for the sake of what this particular movie is, in service of this particular character, this tone, and then also I think to keep the audience engaged. everything felt in service of this story, of the idea, the heart of the story, the themes of the story, the family aspect of the story, but also just taking a bit of the piss out of the superhero genre in general. You have a stand-in there in this, for me, one of the standouts of this movie, Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays Freddy, is fantastic. Man, this kid is funny, he's smart, there's a lot of pathos, but he also stands in what Coulson used to be in the MCU, which is he speaks for the fans of superheroes, which is great because he gives Shazam, played by Zachary Levi, the information he needs, but also because that's how they're able to kind of play on these tropes and take the piss out of them a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Zachary Levi and Asher Angel are great as
Shazam and Billy.
The two Billies, the two Billy Batson and Shazam, the two Billies, and they work well together. But Jack Dylan Grazer, he's stolen movies before. If you don't know the name, you've seen it, then you know him. They're gazebos.
Yes.
He largely stole a big chunk of that movie already, and he doesn't overshadow necessarily anybody in this movie, but he is the standout. He's got the big laugh lines.
Yeah.
I love that character. He's one of my favorite characters in a movie that I've seen. But again, talking about the way that they're able to juggle two things, he's not just a funny sidekick. They give his character dimension and his own things that he's dealing with that cause conflict in a very natural way as the story progresses, that doesn't feel forced or out of nowhere. And again, I think that's where this movie does so well, is they service what they need to, the big third act, the funny sidekick, the superpowers, in a world where there have been 70 superhero movies that have done so many of these other things, but they make all of this stuff their own and inherent to a movie. And I think that's why when we'll review a different movie and we'll talk about cliches and you're like, oh, they have this cliche and that cliche, they're like, well, why, that's in every movie, why is it a cliche in this movie? It's because the movies that really are able to make those cliches, quote unquote, work is when they make them work as characters first, and they're motivated by story and emotion and heart. And that's why it works in this film.
I agree. It's such a smart script, and it's so well executed. It's so well directed, and all of the performances, to be fair, are great. To your point, Asher Angel and Zachary Levi, I think one of the fun things about that is that Asher, who plays Billy, actually gets more of the kind of adult themes and emotional weight. He's dealing with trauma. He's dealing with a very difficult past, a very difficult family situation. Not so much that it weights down the movie, but he's actually given the more adult things to deal with in terms of emotionally. And then Zachary Levi is given more of like the pure joy and childlike delight in being able to have these powers and have this ability and even just get beer. You've seen that in the trailer when he takes on this persona. So that's kind of a cool juxtaposition. But what Jack Dylan Grazer's character also does, Freddy, is that there's inherently a theme about, and something we've been missing, which is just the fun, the pleasure of being a superhero instead of the weight and the responsibility of it, is present here full force. And what that character Freddy does is adds a layer to that so that it's even more deeply felt, particularly in that third act. So I think all of it works so well together. This isn't just a film it's really fun to watch, but it's not just fun to watch. It's the choices that were made that were in service of the story, that were in service of the character, that make it fun to watch, that make it a pleasure to watch. That's why when we're talking about cliches and things that don't work, it's because they were in service of themselves and not the greater story and not the characters. Everything that is done here, you know why it was done. You know what I mean? And you know what it is in service to. I think David Sandberg, who directed Annabelle Creation, that comes out of horror, did a incredible job. And there's a fair bit to that point of appropriate menace, so that just at the point when Shazam Billy thinks he's invincible and has that childlike arrogance, the menace comes in and we feel the weight of it too. I think it's a very delicate tone that he's hitting with this film, and boy does he knock it out of the park, even in that third act, which I would have let go because most of them don't. They do. They nail the ending of this movie.
Every time this movie threatens to fall into the superhero cliche hole, it pulls itself back from it and surprises you. And I like that. I like that. That's what I like to see. And looking at it is in this DC universe. So looking at these films, all of them, I think that Wonder Woman, when it hits its highs, I think flies higher than this film. but looking at them all as a whole, I think this might be the most complete, meaning beginning to end, tracks all the way through. Because even Wonder Woman falls prey a little bit to this big third act syndrome of everything getting a little swallowed up by needing to end with this huge, and it just becomes throwing thing. This movie has that, but is able to put it in service of the rest of the film and really bring everything together that it's been establishing. So by that metric, I think this is the most complete beginning to end film in this DCEU so far.
I have to agree. And it also is unburdened from having, even though it's connected and it's referenced how it's connected to this larger universe, it's unburdened by that larger universe. It doesn't have to serve anything. It doesn't have to set anything up.
No.
It doesn't have to reference back to, none of that is there. There's no weird bookends that don't make any sense. Yeah. None of that is there. It's so clean. And that's, I think, one of the things that I really, really appreciate. For me, in terms of how this film was written, directed, the construction of the film, the story, the performances, it is the most complete, tightest, best version that we've gotten from DC so far. And I love Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I enjoy a lot of the other movies in aspects of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shazam is great, is my point.
Yes. This is really good.
This is really good.
It's a big recommendation.
Yes.
It opens. It's going to be a little bit while before that. That's kind of when we had a hint that maybe they felt a little bit differently, because there have been other films in this universe that we have not been able to review until the week that it opens.
Yes.
We won't see it until the Monday or Tuesday before it opens. The fact that they are previewing this film this early, that they're dropping the embargo this early, I think they're confident in the movie. I think they should be confident in the movie. I think this is going to be a big hit.
Oh, it's going to make so many dollar bills.
Looking back on the scheduling, I think this is really going to take advantage of the fact that it has this window of 3 weeks, I think, after Captain Marvel and 3 weeks before Endgame hits. I think it's going to take full advantage of that. Yeah. And more than anything, I just really, really, really like this movie.
I really, really, really enjoy it too. It's going to be a rare one where I will happily go see it again.
Yeah.
Huge recommendation, man. I think David Sandberg for me is really impressed. I'm curious to see where his career will go from here, because both he and everyone has brought their A game on this film. Go see it. Go see Shazam. It's so much fun, and it's nice to just feel that joy.
Just a good time.
It's just a good time.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Check it out. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon with more reviews and everything else right here on Screen Junkies News.